They say a photo is worth 1,000 words. But what if those words are a scream? This is a story about a smile that was never meant to be captured, a smile that didn't belong to anyone alive. And it all began with a box that should have never been opened. Aashi had just moved to Delhi, a shy but quietly determined girl from Uttarakhand. She had big dreams: photography, editing, a career in the creative world. Her parents helped her settle in, unpacking boxes and wiping dust from the old flat's corners. It was one of those places that didn't seem haunted, but definitely didn't feel lived in either. Behind the fridge, shoved between crumbling books and some termite-eaten furniture, they found a box. Old, moldy, taped shut but barely holding together. They laughed it off, called it junk, and pushed it to the side. Her mom did pause for a moment, her fingers brushing the box like something inside had jolted her. She didn't say much, but hugged Aashi a little tighter before leaving. Her words? "I don't know why, but something feels wrong here." Aashi, of course, didn't believe in ghosts. She believed in good light, perfect compositions, and the kind of camera that could capture truth. What she didn't know was that some cameras can capture something else. She settled in fine. New friends, college classes, plans to host a party that weekend. But when she finally cleaned the balcony, she noticed the box again. Half-rotted, soaked from a recent rain. Curiosity, as it always does in horror stories, got the better of her. Inside was an old camera, vintage, heavy, made of real metal, not plastic. It looked like it hadn't worked in decades. And yet, when she held it up to her eye, the viewfinder blinked alive like it had been waiting. There was even a half-used film reel inside. She didn't think twice, pulled the old one out, loaded a new roll and started snapping photos of flowers, her building, her neighbor Mrs. Kaushik, who smiled warmly from across the way with her fluffy white cat. Aashi felt inspired, energized, that kind of thrill only a passionate artist gets when they stumble onto a new toy. She thought she'd discovered treasure. What she'd really found was a trap. The next day, she rushed to a local photo lab and had them developed. At first glance, everything looked fine, beautiful even. But as she studied the prints closer, she noticed something wrong. In the background of every single shot, there was a shape, not clearly visible, just a shadow. But it was there everywhere. And what was worse, that shadow, it was smiling. Throughout history, photography has been seen as magical. Some cultures even feared that cameras could steal your soul. But this isn't just folklore. In 2010, a woman in Mexico reported seeing a ghost in every photo she took with a thrift store Polaroid camera. Months later, she went missing. In Japan, cursed cameras are a recurring theme in urban legends. One such tale involved a schoolgirl who took a photo of an abandoned hospital and found herself in that hospital a week later, unable to explain how she got there. So when Aashi started seeing that smile in every photo, it wasn't her imagination. It was a warning. Friday came. Her friends were supposed to come over the next day for a house party. She started decorating, cleaning, trying to distract herself. But every time she passed the camera, it felt like it was watching her. She took a few selfies in the mirror. That's when it happened. A loud crack echoed through the room. The mirror split across the middle, as if hit by invisible force. Her hand jerked back, dropping the camera. But in the reflection, she wasn't alone. She saw herself, but the reflection still held the camera. And it was smiling. Not just smiling, grinning. That smile, it wasn't joyful. It wasn't even human. It was the kind of smile that comes just before something very, very bad happens. And it was just the beginning. Aashi lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. No music, no phone, no party, just the silence of a new city and an old flat. Her mind kept replaying the reflection, that other her, grinning back from the mirror, refusing to blink. She had convinced herself it was stress, that she had overworked herself cleaning and planning. She told herself that weird things happen all the time when you're tired. But deep down, something inside her was shifting, from curiosity to dread. She turned over in bed, pulling the covers close. The camera, still on her table, still aimed toward the window. like it had eyes. Sometime past midnight, Aashi fell asleep on her couch while studying. Her dreams were chaotic. Rapid flashes, camera shutters, faces she didn't recognize. Then, still in the dream, she opened her eyes. She was in the same room, same couch, but everything looked off. The walls had turned gray. The air was thick. The smell of mildew filled her nose. And in front of the balcony, lit by moonlight, stood Mrs. Kaushik. Only this time, the sweet old woman wasn't smiling kindly. She was grinning, that same eerie, exaggerated grin. Aashi tried to move, to scream, to blink, but nothing worked. She was frozen. Behind Mrs. Kaushik, a pale hand emerged, holding a piece of broken glass. In slow motion, it reached her throat, and then Aashi woke up, back in her bed, sweating, heart racing. Just a nightmare, right? The next morning, she looked around. Everything was where it should be, except for one thing: blood. Tiny red paw prints on her bed, smudges on the floor, and in the corner, Mrs. Kaushik's white cat, staring dead at the camera. It wasn't supposed to be there. Her hands trembled as she approached. The cat didn't flinch. His eyes never moved. Then she saw it, a photograph sticking out of her desk drawer, one she hadn't taken. In it, Aashi, asleep, clutching her bedsheet. Standing behind her, that same hazy shadow, and next to it, Mrs. Kaushik, both smiling. Let's pause here, because this is where the story shifts. A camera capturing moments you don't remember is unsettling, but capturing moments that haven't happened yet, that's supernatural. This idea of prophetic photography, where cursed cameras predict or cause tragedies, has surfaced in multiple cultures. In South Korea, a photographer was said to develop images showing people moments before their deaths, even though the events hadn't happened yet. In Nigeria, there's folklore of spirit capturing lenses that trap souls in photographs. The moment a camera starts developing images you didn't take, you've crossed a line. And Aashi, she was already on the other side. In a panic, Aashi grabbed the box again, the one she thought she'd tossed aside. Beneath the foam padding, she found the original reel, the one that had come with the camera. Something about it felt wrong to touch. She loaded it into a projector at her college's media lab. Frame by frame, she watched flowers, plants, Mrs. Kaushik watering her garden. Then the images began to twist. Same scenes, but warped. Mrs. Kaushik now stared at the camera, unmoving, her smile bigger, almost broken. In the final frame, a woman, standing where Aashi's flat would be, bleeding from her eyes, holding the camera. It wasn't Mrs. Kaushik. It wasn't a stranger. It was Aashi. By now, Aashi had stopped attending classes. No one had heard from her in 2 days. Her friends grew concerned. They called, messaged, even visited her flat, but the door remained locked. Finally, they brought the landlord. When they broke in, the place was still, clean, too clean. The only thing out of place, the vintage camera sitting in the center of the room, next to a photograph. The photo was recent, freshly developed. It showed the doorway just as it looked that moment. Only difference, in the frame, Aashi stood at the door. Behind her, a line of people, all grinning, all impossibly still. One of them looked just like Mrs. Kaushik. Disappearances tied to cursed objects aren't new. There are dozens of real-life cases of people vanishing after encounters with supposedly haunted items. The Dybbuk box, for example, is said to have caused hallucinations, illness, even death. In Scotland, a family reported vanishing right after purchasing a World War II-era camera from a collector. In every case, the object remains behind, like a souvenir from the unknown. And that's exactly what happened here. Back home, Aashi's parents were heartbroken. They had taken her things from the flat, including the camera. It was now locked in their attic. One day, her younger brother sneaked it out, just a curious kid. He went outside and took a picture of the old tree near their house. 3 days later, that tree rotted from the inside. Leaves blackened, branches fell. The photo, when he had it developed, there she was, Aashi, standing behind the tree, smiling. They never found her body, never found her shadow, but somewhere out there, that camera is still loaded, still waiting, and the smile, still spreading. Weeks had passed since Aashi's disappearance. Her family no longer spoke of Delhi, or the camera. Her mother, once hopeful, now stared at blank walls as if waiting for them to blink. Her father barely spoke. Only her little brother, Rohan, still clung to the impossible. He remembered what he saw in that photo. He remembered her. She had looked older, different, tired, but she had been there, right behind the tree, half hidden in the shadows. And she was smiling. Rohan was the only one who still believed Aashi was alive. Somewhere, somehow, Rohan started spending hours online. Forum, paranormal archive, occult photography threads. He discovered that stories of haunted cameras dated back to the 19th century. Scroll case number 1. The Wailing Lens, London, 1882. A camera that produced wailing sounds at midnight. All subjects photographed by it died within a week. Scroll case number 2. The Shadow Film, Nagoya, 1939. A reel developed during wartime that contained footage of people who had already died, and some who hadn't yet. Scroll case number 3. Smile Cult, 2005, Belgium. A fringe group obsessed with capturing true happiness on film. Members began disappearing. The photos always showed people with stretched, unnatural smiles and shadows looming behind. These weren't just stories. Many of them had matching descriptions. Smiling figures, appearances in photos before or after death. Cameras passed from one hand to another, never destroyed. They were artifacts of something bigger, something hungry. Here's where we have to talk about the psychological side. The human brain is pattern-driven. It tries to find meaning even in randomness. This is called pareidolia, our tendency to see faces in shadows, shapes in clouds, or smiles in static. But there's another layer, apophenia. When we connect completely unrelated data and believe there's a link, that's what makes cursed objects so terrifying. Even rational people start making connections that feel real. Once you believe something is haunted, it becomes haunted. The camera didn't just take Aashi's photo. It rewrote the meaning of every smile she ever made. Rohan was jolted awake by a noise, like a shutter click. He looked out his window. There, in the garden, sat a white cat, staring directly at his window. It was her cat, Mrs. Kaushik's cat. He hadn't seen it in weeks. No one had. The next morning, his window had tiny scratches across the glass, as if something had tried to get in. On his desk, a photo, unlabeled, slightly curled at the edges. In it, the cat, sitting in the exact same position. And behind the cat, a blurred silhouette of Aashi, still smiling, still watching. This is where it becomes clear the curse doesn't end with one person. It transfers, like a virus passed through visuals. Smile-based horror has always been deeply unsettling because it distorts something safe into something sinister. Consider clowns meant to be funny, now symbols of fear. Smiling dolls, supposed to bring joy, now horror movie staples. Even in films like Smile, 2022, or Truth or Dare, 2018, the evil is marked by unnatural grins. That's because the smile is the ultimate mask. You can't scream while you're smiling. Rohan found one last lead, a local historian, Mr. Day, who had studied paranormal photography. Mr. Day had seen cases like this before. When Rohan showed him the photo of Aashi behind the tree, Mr. Day froze. "That camera," he whispered, "has been missing for 70 years. It used to belong to a traveling photographer in Shimla. Every town he visited, someone went missing. And every time, the last photo taken showed the next victim. According to Day, the only way to stop it was to break the camera and destroy the film inside." But Rohan remembered what Aashi had said months ago, when she first moved. Cameras don't just capture light, they trap time. And he knew it might be too late. Rohan took the camera to a remote place. He smashed it with a hammer, burned the reel, buried the ashes. The air smelled like burning plastic and old iron. He walked home relieved, thinking it was finally over. That night, he received an MMS, an image of his backyard. Same old tree, same white cat, and next to the cat, a new figure, himself, asleep at his desk, with the camera on his lap. And behind him, a figure smiling, too wide, too still. Let's stop here and breathe. The most chilling horror stories don't end with blood. They end with loops, with curses that regenerate, spread, multiply. You think it's over, but all it takes is one more photograph, one more smile, and it begins again. Rohan returned to school with bags under his eyes and a heart full of dread. He kept thinking, what if that picture wasn't a warning? What if it was a prophecy? Then, strange things started happening around him. First, his classmate Arian found an old Polaroid on the library windowsill. He snapped a photo for fun, the empty hallway outside the library. But when it developed, there was a figure standing in the center of the frame. Not just any figure, it was Rohan, but smiling in a way Arian had never seen before, ear to ear, vacant, almost mechanical. Arian swore Rohan had never been in the hallway. That photo made its way around school. Some thought it was edited, some laughed. But the next day, Arian didn't show up, and his locker burst open. Inside, dozens of copies of that same photo. We think of viruses as biological, but in the digital age, they're visual, mimetic, viral in the literal sense. Ever heard of mimetic contagion? It's the idea that an image, phrase, or pattern can infect your thoughts and behavior, like a psychological virus. This is why cursed videos, smile challenges, and haunted chain emails scare people. The act of seeing becomes dangerous. That's what makes this story so terrifying. The smile isn't just supernatural. It's a symbolic disease. Once you see it, it lives in you. A girl named Prisha, a friend of Arian, posted the photo of him on Instagram as a tribute, as a mystery. She even used the caption, "Missing, but still smiling." Within 24 hours, that photo got over 2,000 likes and dozens of bizarre comments. That smile is still watching. It's moving. Look at the mirror behind him. People began reposting it, remixing it with filters, turning it into a meme, until the comments started turning dark. People started tagging Prisha in unrelated posts. Distorted faces, glitched selfies, eyes scratched out, mouth stretched. Then she posted her last selfie. She was smiling, but it wasn't hers. Something about the eyes looked borrowed. That photo is still online, but no one remembers uploading it. Rohan had stopped sleeping. Every night, he taped over the lens of every camera, even the ones on his phone and laptop. But that night, he heard it again. Click. He ran to his phone. Nothing in the gallery. He opened his laptop. There it was. A photo he didn't take. It showed his room, from the ceiling corner, like a CCTV feed. And on his bed, himself. But his reflection in the window beside the bed was smiling. Too wide, too still. Let's take a detour into true stories. Did you know there's a real-life urban legend called the Grinning Man? It dates back to the 1960s with reports from New Jersey and West Virginia. Witnesses described a tall man with a permanent, unsettling grin who followed them without blinking. He never spoke. He just smiled. Some believe the legend evolved into stories like the Slender Man or modern creepypasta tales, especially ones involving visual hauntings. And the most disturbing part? The Grinning Man often appeared right before tragedy struck. Real or imagined, the idea of a grinning presence trailing disaster is ancient. We smile when we're happy, but what does it mean when the unknown smiles back? Rohan's school had an abandoned audio/visual room where old projectors and TV sets were kept. He snuck in, carrying a stack of photos and his laptop. He wanted to test something. He streamed one of the cursed photos on an analog TV. The screen twitched, flickered, then it smiled. The image, his sister, Aashi, turned toward the camera and her mouth moved. No sound, just lips forming a word. He read them, clearly. Smile. Every TV in the room switched on, all showing different images. all with the same background figure growing closer. His laptop shut down, and on the wall behind him, the projector cast a new image of him, right there, watching it, and the smile behind him, less like a grin, more like a gash. There's something deeply primal about the uncanny smile. Evolutionarily, smiles are meant to show friendliness, but too wide, too stiff, too long, that's a threat. It's called the uncanny valley effect, when something is almost human, but not quite. Movies like Smile, 2022, and Midsummer weaponize this, stretching joy into dread. That's what this curse does. It turns a smile, your safest expression, into a weapon, a signature of something inhuman pretending to be one of us. One final photo, sent to every student's phone. No caption, just a photo of the entire class. A group picture. At first glance, normal, but everyone is smiling. Too wide, exactly the same. And standing behind them, Aashi, center frame, her eyes dark, her face glowing. And just behind her, 100 more smiling figures. Some are blurred, some are kids, some aren't even human anymore, and they're all looking at you. Interior Rohan's flat night. 3 days had passed. Rohan was missing. No word, no signal, no trafe. His room was sealed. Parents said he left voluntarily. Friends said otherwise. But those who entered his room noticed something. Faint, burnt smell. Polaroids, curled, faded, scattered around the floor. The smiles in them still fresh. One photo lay face down on the desk. When a friend flipped it over, it was a picture of them, standing there, right then, taken from inside the room. But no one had a camera, and no one was smiling, until they saw the photo. Then one of them did, uncontrollably, that unnatural, stretched grin. We live in a time where myths mutate. Analog horror, smiley face killers, digital spirits. Stories once passed by whispers now spread through scrolls and likes. The haunted house becomes a haunted hashtag. The ghost in the mirror becomes a filter. The cursed object becomes a lens. This story isn't just about a haunted camera. It's about how we see ourselves, and how sometimes the reflection doesn't want to give you back. Delhi, 1998. A small photography studio in Lajpat Nagar caught fire. The fire started in the darkroom. Inside, reels of unprocessed film. Family portraits, weddings, birthdays, all lost, except one. A single reel that survived the flames. Rescued by a man named Kaushik, the original Mr. Kaushik. His hobby? Restoring old photos. He developed the reel in secret. But when the images emerged, he saw faces smiling back at him. Even in pictures where no one was supposed to be, he began seeing those faces in his dreams. Until he was found, months later, catatonic in his flat. Eyes open, mouth stretched, still smiling. That reel vanished until someone left it in a cardboard box, waiting for someone curious enough to open it. Let's take another chilling detour. Between the late 1990s and 2000s, over 40 young men in the US were found drowned in rivers and lakes, all classified as accidents. But a theory emerged, the Smiley Face Killers. Near many of the scenes, smiley face graffiti was found. Coincidence? Or a cryptic calling card? The idea of a smiling entity leaving behind a mark, physical or psychological, ties into folklore from all over the world. The Naparbo of Japan, faceless ghosts who smile before vanishing. The Penanggalan of Southeast Asia, disembodied heads that grin as they fly. The smile room of online horror, a place you enter and never stop smiling again. Across cultures, across media, the smile is a warning, not a welcome. Months after Aashi disappeared, her little brother Vahan found the old vintage camera hidden among her stuff. He thought it was junk, but the reel, still inside. He took one photo, a tree outside their home. 2 days later, the tree wilted, blackened. When Vahan developed the photo, he saw someone standing behind it. Aashi, her face pale, her smile deeper than any he remembered. Not forced, not scared, just wrong. He screamed, and the camera clicked again. Horror stories have always reflected us. Our fears, our desires, our mistakes. This story isn't just about a camera. It's about the price of curiosity, the danger of nostalgia, the fragility of identity in a world of reflections, mirrors, and manipulated images. The smile is just a metaphor for something deeper, how we hide pain with filters, how we smile when we're breaking, how sometimes the darkness wears a grin. In a deleted folder on an abandoned laptop, a video autoplays. The screen is cracked. A girl sits in front of a mirror. It's Aashi. She raises the camera, points it at herself. She says, without emotion, it's not just in the film anymore. Behind her, dozens of reflections move, but she doesn't. The smile flickers, and suddenly the feed cuts to black. Then, a final whisper, smile. If there's one thing to take away from this terrifying tale, it's this. Every smile has a story. Some are joyful, some are masks, and some are traps. In the age of selfies and surveillance, sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't being watched. It's watching yourself change without realizing. Smile wisely, because something might smile back, and it may already be inside the lens. It's 2025. A new girl moves into the same deli flat. Same floor, same balcony, same old layout. She's told the place had no previous tenant, but the rent is low, the vibe strangely familiar. On her second day, while unpacking, she opens a bottom drawer. Inside, a single photo, faded, a girl standing in a balcony, camera in hand. The girl looks eerily like her, only the girl in the picture is smiling, and she's not. That night, the electricity flickers. A whisper echoes from her wall. Say cheese. Let's now take a step back and dive into the bigger picture. You see, cursed objects have always been a recurring motif in horror. The Dybbuk box, an old wine cabinet allegedly haunted by a malicious spirit, which inspired the movie The Possession. Robert the doll housed in a Florida museum, it's said to curse those who disrespect it. Annabelle, a Raggedy Ann doll that now sits inside the Warren Occult Museum, surrounded by glass and prayer. But cameras hit different, because they capture, and sometimes what they capture isn't just visible light. Across the world, there are stories of photos revealing ghosts in the background, people falling ill or dying after taking certain photographs, mirrors reflecting something that isn't there. Even in fiction, this theme haunts us. Shudder, Thai horror classic, a ghost appears in photos, always behind the protagonist. Polaroid, a cursed camera leads to deaths matching what's seen in the snapshots. The Ring, watch a video, die in 7 days. But also, the photograph distortion motif is central. In every case, the camera isn't the villain. It's just the witness. Let's walk through a few real-life cases that blur the lines between fiction and truth. Candle case number 1. The Smiling Woman of 7th Street, 2004, Mumbai. A young photographer named Pranav bought an old Kodak camera from a thrift store. It worked fine until he developed a roll from a nearby temple festival. In every photo, in the background, stood a woman in a bright red sari, grinning ear to ear. He never remembered seeing her. He burned the reel. 2 weeks later, his building caught fire. The only thing salvaged? That camera, still loaded with a new roll, already half used. No one admitted to taking photos. Candle case number 2. The ghost in the graduation picture, 2011, Himachal. A group of school friends went on a weekend trip to celebrate graduation. They posed for dozens of group photos. In one particular picture, a student who had died the previous year appeared in the corner, smiling, not blurry, not a reflection, crystal clear. The photo was taken on a borrowed camera. When the owner was asked about it, he went pale. He had deleted that entire roll days ago. Candle case number 3. The photo booth in the hills, 2020, Manali. A temporary fair set up a retro-style photo booth near the hills. Visitors would step inside, press a button, and a Polaroid would print. Locals noticed something odd. In many of the prints, people appeared older. Faces sagged, eyes hollow, mouths forced into smiles. Some said they saw things behind them. The booth disappeared overnight. No record of the vendor, no license, nothing. Just abandoned photo strips fluttering down the valley. Let me leave you with something I received from a viewer. After watching one of our earlier Haunted Camera episodes, they sent an email. No text, just an image attachment. It was a selfie. In the background, me, in my recording studio. Except, I had never met this person, and I was smiling. The next day, their account vanished. I tried reverse searching the photo. Nothing. Sometimes I wonder if I was ever really in that image, or if something was wearing my face. In today's world of reels, filters, and constant snapshots, we're surrounded by smiles. But sometimes the smile is too wide, too empty, too calculated. In horror, the smile isn't joy, it's distortion, a mask, a warning. And just like in this story, it often says one thing: I see you. So the next time you smile for the camera, look behind you. Make sure you're the only one there. Have you ever taken a photo where something unexplainable appeared? A blur? A shadow? A face that wasn't there? Or worse, something that looked like you? If you enjoyed tonight's chilling tale, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps summon more spooky stories for you. Subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss a night at the edge of fear. And tell me in the comments. Until next time, sleep tight if you can.